All right, a little talk here about the sawmill. Not a lot of information out there on these mobile dimension mills, but I just show that there is such a thing as a blade with 12 teeth in it instead of 6 teeth. And then you've got a big edger here. That's an 8-tooth big edger. And then this is a normal small edger that does the 4-inch cut. That big edger does an 8-inch cut. Those two up there would be for a 127 mil. We have a 128. And then something people usually don't have is this thing. And this is the third edger blade, so that when you're running in the 4-inch cut, you can strap this on, and if you really want to, you can make 3 1x4s or 3 2x4s or 3, well, I guess if you really wanted to make 3 4x4s in one pass, you could. So, because our mill, I don't have that down. It would take a while to get it out. And show that we can rig. You can rig a 128 mil up as a 127. I got the 17, and it's a 17.5 inch blade for the 127 edger, and it's a 19.5 for the 128s, and then all the 30-inch saws, they're all 30-inch blades. They're either 5/16 6-tooth, 1/4-inch 12-tooth, and for the electric mill there's a 5/16 12-tooth. That would be the standard blade for an electric, and then the optional blade, main blade for the electric, is a 18-tooth 1/4-inch blade. So it would be that thinner 12-tooth blade, but it would have another 6 sockets around it. So all the teeth that our mill has on 3 blades on 1 blade. So I can walk out here and I can show. Well, I can just show. You cut in from the one side. I call it the typewriter theory. It's like running a typewriter, and you make your cuts across. You come back and you just keep this doing the typewriter effect. Only thing is, it cuts side to side. It cuts either 8 or 4 inches, and then vertical is always a 12-inch cut. So if you've got a log and you got a bottom slab here, you can cut this off here. You slide the log over and you turn it 90 degrees, and then you can get another pass of 12-inch, 10, 12-inch, whatever your order is or whatever you're cutting. And then your knots are going straight through the wood instead of being a spike knot through the board, because spike knots don't have anywhere near as much structural strength as a knot that's straight through the board. This is a standard gauge track, or I call it standard gauge. Some people call it a narrow gauge. I call it a standard gauge because they made the mills for more years with the narrow track than they did with the wide track. I guess if they ever get to making the wide track for more years, then I'll start calling the wide track standard gauge, and I'll start calling this narrow gauge. But pick your poison. If anybody's looking at these used by, the digits on the outside edge indicate which mill of the year it was made. So if that was that 5 and that 3, that indicates that this was the 53rd mill made, and then the 2 digits in the middle indicate 1992. And then this over here, I think you can see that. Yeah, 128. And that indicates a maximum cut of 8 inches side to side and 12 inches up and down. If it had an E on it, 128E, 127E, that would be an electric model. They got great big 3-phase motors that they put on these things. I guess way back in the day, the early electrics just had a electric motor rigged up on the gasoline carriage, and then you still had the twisted belts, because you have output from the engine in that direction, these main belts that come down to this main shaft, and that shaft powers out obviously to the main blade. And then these 3 belts here, they're at that angle there, but up here they turn 90 degrees, because obviously the edger shaft is 90 degrees off from the main blade. And the electric mills don't have that. They literally have, there's no gas can here, so their shaft comes up taller. If I put the camera where you can see my hand, and then there's an electric motor. So the vast majority of the electric mills have 2 electric motors, one that drives the main blade, one that drives the edger shaft. I believe the vast majority of them are 25 horse on the main blade and 15 horse on the edger. I guess the other thing that it would be good to mention is I actually worked for Mobile Dimension when they were still in Troutdale. They are no longer in Troutdale. The phone number is still accurate, but they're no longer in Troutdale. They're down south on I-5, just north of Salem. I forget what, there's a big truck stop. Oh, the Oregon Steam Up. It's the same exit that you go to the Oregon Steam Up to, that their business is located, but they're largely doing mail order parts. They're working on a number of new features, a new generation of track. They're unfortunately having to deal with emissions regulations, because if you do any shopping around, you basically find that any gasoline engine nowadays over about 25 horsepower is fuel injected. So as far as the emissions regulations are concerned, a carbureted 1835 Volkswagen air-cooled at about 67 horsepower definitely does not meet those emissions regulations, whatever the actual part per million is, I don't know. So they're basically working at getting the electric versions of the mill back into production with a new design of track to reduce the amount of bounce in the mill. There's a number of different... they put a whole bunch of effort into making a retrofit kit to convert older, mid 80s and older mills from the mechanical drive system to the hydrostatic drive system. Basically a hydrostatic unit out of a riding lawnmower or something of that sort. The old mills, they just had a lever here. You went up on a thing, it went down the track, it hit a trip, and then the mill came back. If the board got stuck in something, if the slab got stuck in something, The only way to stop the mill from coming back to you was to run up and turn the key off. Needless to say, that's not necessarily OSHA approved nowadays. I mean, I remember when this guard wasn't here, there's probably another guard on it that we don't have anybody working by the hour for, so we don't have to have the guard that goes over the main blade here, but definitely a no-brainer, and it's the you don't get in the way of that blade, because that 30-inch blade spinning at 1,000 RPMs, it's going to be a bad day. There's no way around that. I guess I can show, you know, works on a rack and pinion, kind of drives it back and forth. It's the same kind of rack that drives it back and forth, the carriage on the track. The electric motor to this, basically a worm drive. You got the shaft running down to the far end, the exact same sort of gear, and the exact same drive going across to the other side. And this is a 5x10 mil, I believe. 5-foot in stands and 10-foot side to side. I do have a future upgrade. These are the newer generation. You can see here it actually has ball bearings in the shafts on there. They don't hardly spin at any kind of speed, but it'll make the mill 7x11 instead of 5x10, so it'll take a little bit of modification to make that work. These rollers, they'll just swap over. Help if I put the camera on it. They just pop out of the top when you set the mill down, and they'll stick in the top of those posts. The drive tubing, we'll probably have to get a piece of drive tubing that goes side to side that's a little longer. Of course, there's, yeah, it sticks clean out to there, so I might be able to split it, you know, 6 inches on each side, and maybe that's good enough. Trying to think of anything else. There's a whole bunch of things. Early 90s. This is 92 mil. 92 was probably one of the first years for the overhead sawdust chute. This little chute here was used in the 80s and older, or they just didn't even, it was just flat across the top, and then it had a little angle out here and it blew the sawdust out that way. This is not a mobile manufacturing trailer. Mobile manufactured trailers that the mills go on are, the vast majority of them are the standard 8-foot wide. When I worked there in Troutdale, all the old guys made a big deal about we were starting to make 9-foot wide trailers. So basically, the duration of time that I worked there in Troutdale, 1.5 years, we made less than 15 9-foot wide trailers. So technically those need permits to go down the road, because they don't narrow up in any way. Oh, besides the retrofit to hydrostatic, the manufacturer is working on a retrofit to electric start. It might be kind of hard for some people to believe, but a whole lot of these mills were made back in the day with a magneto, and actually this has evidence of those days because they still were making the air ducting. You see these little hooks. Those hooks were to hook a rope, and then the rope wraps around, and you literally rope started a Volkswagen engine. This box on the side here, that is the newer remote kill. So then you got this button back here. Sometimes it works. Actually, I think I got it unplugged right now because it wasn't working right. So I got the hydrostatic to walk it back out of the wood if something jams up in the cut. But in terms of it actually getting stuck in the cut, and the hydrostatic drive is not able to power it back out to free it out, I still have to run up there and turn that key off. That's something that a whole lot of people have asked for an improvement to the mills to make that a whole lot safer, because, well, we had one experience. I think I've gotten rid of the belts now, but this thing was stuck in the cut. Luckily, I was just over here, and my dad, he can't get up there to turn the key off, and if I hadn't have been here to run up there and turn the key off, it probably would have burnt to the ground, because the belts were just on the brink of catching on fire, because the main blade was jammed in the cut. And if you can't, well, there was a number of yeah, he had a piece of lumber. It was pushing a piece of lumber out back, and it, you know, you think about what you can do after the fact, but right